stop for a moment, because what I'm about to explain is not conjecture, not opinion, and not political theater. What unfolded early this morning represents a serious and verifiable rupture at the highest levels of the Republican Party. At precisely 7:43 a.m., three senior Republican Senate leaders entered Mitch McConnell's office for what was scheduled as a routine leadership discussion. 47 minutes later, they emerged having made a decision that would ignite the most consequential internal rebellion within the party since the Watergate era. Within 2 hours, Washington was in open political shock. This is not a story about policy disagreements or ideological nuance. It is about senior Republican figures reaching the conclusion that Donald Trump is no longer governable, and the event that triggered this assessment is both specific and extraordinary. What I'm about to outline has been confirmed through three independent sources inside the Senate Republican Conference. In the early hours of Wednesday morning at 2:17 a.m., Donald Trump placed a call to the Senate Majority Leader. The demand was blunt and unequivocal: an immediate vote on what he described as the Emergency Powers Expansion Act. He issued an ultimatum: pass the measure by Friday or face primary challenges backed by Trump himself. He made clear he was prepared to campaign against Republican senators in their own states. Just hours later, at 6:30 a.m., leaked audio began circulating among senior Republicans. In that recording, Trump is heard saying, quite plainly, "I do not need the Senate. These people work for me." The reaction was not fear. It was anger. By 7:43 a.m., an emergency meeting was convened. Present were Mitch McConnell, Senate Minority Whip John Thune, Conference Chair John Barrasso, and Senior Texas Senator John Cornyn. They spent 47 minutes behind closed doors. What was decided in that room would amount to the most direct internal challenge to Trump's authority from within his own party to date. To understand why this moment matters, it's necessary to understand how Donald Trump has exercised control over Senate Republicans for nearly 8 years. This has never been about ideology or legislative priorities. It has been about fear, carefully applied, consistently reinforced, and strategically deployed. There are three examples every Republican senator understands. In 2020, Mitt Romney voted to convict Trump during the first impeachment trial. The response was immediate and punitive. Trump publicly denounced him. Romney was censured by his state party, isolated within the conference, and politically weakened. The message was unmistakable: defy Trump and face the consequences. In 2021, Bill Cassidy voted to convict in the second impeachment trial. He made repeated efforts to repair the relationship, publicly deferring, voting in line with Trump's positions, and seeking reconciliation. None of it mattered. Once Cassidy was no longer useful, Trump endorsed a primary challenger regardless. The lesson was reinforced. Loyalty to Trump does not protect you, it merely postpones retaliation. In 2023, Kevin McCarthy negotiated a bipartisan debt ceiling agreement. Trump privately opposed it. Within weeks, McCarthy was removed as Speaker. The implication was clear to everyone watching: no position, however senior, is secure. This is how authoritarian control functions in practice. You do not need to punish everyone. You simply need to make examples. Fear then does the rest. For years, Republican senators watched colleagues sidelined, careers destroyed, reputations damaged. Each time they made the same calculation: obedience was safer than resistance. But there is a critical limitation to fear as a tool of control. It only works until people realize the threat is permanent, and that realization arrived this week. Three factors converged, fundamentally altering the political calculation. The first of those factors is electoral reality, and it has shifted decisively. The 2024 Senate map is unforgiving for Republicans. 23 Republican seats are up for re-election, compared to just 11 Democratic seats. Internal polling now shows that association with Donald Trump has become a measurable liability rather than an asset. In states such as Montana, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, Republican candidates tied directly to Trump are trailing by 6 to 8 points. One senior senator summarized the dilemma bluntly: "I can defend conservatism. I cannot defend chaos." The second factor is foreign policy, specifically what has become known inside Washington as the Greenland disaster. This is no longer viewed as a rhetorical misstep. It is being treated as a genuine national security concern. NATO allies are alarmed. Senior figures within the defense establishment are openly expressing concern. A retired four-star admiral described the situation succinctly. This is not strategy. This is instability. Members of the Senate Armed Services Committee understand something the public discussion has largely missed. When an American president threatens military action against allied territory, that is not negotiation. It destabilizes the international order and undermines alliance credibility. The third factor is legal exposure. Multiple criminal cases are accelerating. Emergency appeals to the Supreme Court are being declined. Trial dates are firming. One senior Republican legal advisor put it privately, "We are on track to nominate someone who could be in federal custody by November." Taken together, electoral vulnerability, foreign policy recklessness, and mounting legal jeopardy, the cost-benefit analysis changes entirely. Defending Trump is no longer merely uncomfortable. It is increasingly viewed as politically fatal. According to two sources briefed on the meeting, this was the context in which Mitch McConnell convened senior leadership in his office on Wednesday morning. Those present represented the competing instincts within the party. McConnell himself, the institutionalist; John Thune, the pragmatist; John Barrasso, a loyalist under growing pressure; and John Cornyn, a senior figure acutely aware of the electoral consequences unfolding in real time. McConnell began by playing the leaked audio, the full 3-minute recording of Trump declaring, "I do not need the Senate. These people work for me." He played it twice. No one spoke. According to one source, the silence was heavy, almost suffocating. Everyone in the room understood precisely what they were hearing. This was not frustration with Congress. It was a declaration that Congress was irrelevant. John Thune broke the silence. "We cannot defend this," he said. "Not the Greenland rhetoric, not the demand for emergency powers, not the threat to primary sitting senators." He made clear that Republican leaders could not go on television and justify this behavior to voters already exhausted by instability. John Barrasso responded cautiously, voicing what many were thinking. If they opposed Trump publicly, he would retaliate against them individually. They had seen this before. Romney, Cassidy, Cheney, each had paid the price. How is this different? McConnell leaned forward and answered plainly. "It's different because he's going to destroy us anyway," he said. "The question isn't whether we survive politically. It's whether we go down defending him or defending the institution. If we don't draw a line now, there will be no institution left." John Cornyn then laid out the electoral reality in Texas. Polling showed him down 4 points. Every one of those points, he said, could be traced to Trump-related chaos. His voters wanted stability. They wanted governance. They did not want their senator explaining why the president was threatening to invade Greenland. What McConnell proposed next was not symbolic defiance. It was structural resistance. He outlined a plan, a joint letter to the White House stating unequivocally that the Senate would not vote on emergency powers expansion, a refusal by leadership to campaign alongside Trump unless his foreign policy rhetoric was moderated, and, critically, a commitment that if Trump initiated primary challenges against sitting senators, leadership would respond by fully backing incumbents using the resources of the National Republican Senatorial Committee. McConnell looked at each man in turn and asked a single question: "Are you with me?" Thune agreed immediately. Cornyn followed. Barrasso remained silent for what one source described as the longest 30 seconds of the meeting. Finally, he spoke. "You're asking me to commit political suicide." McConnell's reply was measured. "I'm asking you to do your job." Barrasso paused, then said yes. With that, 4 senior Republican leaders crossed a line that had held for 8 years, and the structure supporting Trump's dominance began to fracture. What followed unfolded with remarkable speed. By 9:15 a.m., Mitch McConnell had begun personally contacting senior Republican senators. The message was direct and unambiguous. This course had been set, and each senator needed to decide where they stood. 3 commitments came quickly and were expected: Mitt Romney, Susan Collins, and Lisa Murkowski. Far more surprising were the next 2 names to emerge: Lindsey Graham and Marco Rubio. Graham's decision, in particular, represented a political earthquake. For years, he had been among Donald Trump's most vocal and consistent defenders, publicly, privately, and on television. He had defended Trump through impeachments, indictments, investigations, and controversies that would have ended any conventional political career. According to a source close to Graham, his reasoning was stark. He had defended everything except threats against Allied territory, the dismantling of Senate authority, and the branding of dissenting senators as traitors. "There is a line," he reportedly said, "and he has crossed it." By late morning, the mechanics of the revolt were formalized. At 10:47 a.m., a 5-page letter was drafted using careful constitutional language. The central passage was explicit. Senators could no longer, in good conscience, enable conduct that threatened constitutional order or undermined the institutional authority of the United States Senate. By midday, 12 senators had committed their signatures. At 11:30 a.m., Trump was informed. According to sources, a senior aide alerted him via encrypted message that McConnell and 11 others were preparing to make the letter public that day. Trump's response, as relayed through leaked internal messages, was immediate and furious. "Traitors," written in capital letters, followed by a simple warning, "Watch what happens." He began calling loyalists. At 12:15 p.m., Trump rang Lindsey Graham. The call lasted less than 2 minutes. According to someone briefed on the exchange, Trump told him, "You are dead to me." Graham's response was equally blunt, "Then I am dead." The call ended. Trump then contacted Marco Rubio, telling him, "I made you. I will destroy you." Rubio reportedly replied, "You're destroying yourself. Do what you need to do." Trump attempted to reach Mitch McConnell 3 times. McConnell did not answer. By early afternoon, the rupture became visible to the public. House Republicans issued a statement of full support for the president. Senate leadership remained conspicuously silent. Political correspondents noted the divergence immediately. By 2 p.m., every major outlet was reporting that Senate Republican leaders were refusing to back Trump's emergency powers demand. At 3 p.m., the letter itself was leaked, deliberately. The Washington Post received a copy, and Politico confirmed the signatures within minutes. By 3:15, the full text was widely published. The meaning was unmistakable. This was no private disagreement. It was an open revolt. 20 minutes later, another significant detail emerged. According to a senior Republican strategist who had seen internal planning documents, Senate leadership had prepared a 3-stage contingency plan in anticipation of Trump's response. Stage 1. If Trump attacked publicly, 5 additional senators would issue statements of support. Leadership would hold a press conference emphasizing constitutional responsibility over personal loyalty. Internal estimates place the likelihood of this scenario at 80%. Stage 2. If Trump initiated primary challenges, leadership-aligned political action committees would commit $50 million to defending incumbents. The National Republican Senatorial Committee would refuse funding to challengers. Corporate donors would be mobilized. Probability, 60%. Stage 3. The option leadership hoped to avoid involved formal legislative action. If Trump continued to escalate, the Senate would advance a resolution limiting executive emergency powers, potentially with bipartisan support. A censure vote was also contemplated. Probability, 30%. One senator involved in drafting the plan described the mindset succinctly: "We have gamed every scenario. If he wants a fight, we are prepared. But this time, we are not backing down." At this point, attention shifted to the Democrats, and their response would prove just as consequential.